things can happen that you never know about. This is what we're now facing. This is the sort of thing that our government has done. Now, I say our government has done this, but I can't help but say our government are the people we elected to Congress to do this. When I say our government, it's the people who passed the USAPA, the Patriots Act, with no discussion whatsoever, nothing. They did that in almost zero time. It's also the government that we elected in the Senate and the House, where the Senate gave up its responsibility to declare war. They gave President Bush an essentially blank check to declare war when he wanted to. Our Congress did that. They did not face the issue themselves directly. They said, Bush, whatever you want to do, go ahead. Those are the people that we've elected. Now, of course, the government feels as though they have to expand the powers of the USAPA, that is, do even more delving into our private lives. But there had been enough, let us say, of opposition to this, that the government gave up trying to approve or pass a law called Patriots 2. And what they're doing is the kinds of things they want to do, they're putting it into various other bills, little pieces here and there in other bills, rather than one big bill. One bill that they're trying to get going is called the Real ID Bill. This is HR 418. The bill there would essentially bring together all the databases in the various states that involve driver's license and driver's permits. It's a first step towards getting a national ID, developing an internal passport to travel around the United States. This has not yet been passed. It's in the House and the Senate, and it looks like one of those states where you always keep hearing what we do about it, but what you can do about it is write letters to your congresspeople. And it sounds tiring at times to keep hearing that over and over again. But they're our representatives, or they should be, and they're not going to represent us appropriately if we don't go after them. Okay, so the other thing I want to mention, as where Congress is sidestepping its responsibility, besides that, was what I consider a collapse of Congress, was the creation and passing of Bill S-686. This was entitled, For the Relief of the Parents of Teresa Marie Schiavo. Now, I'm not going to get involved in talking about the merits of the case, but for the Senate and the House of Representatives to pass a bill affecting one person is unheard of in the Congress. And how did this happen? Remember what went on. The bill was presented to the Senate and the House on March 19th. It was passed by them on March 20th, and Bush came roaring in from someplace and signed the bill into law early Monday morning on March 21st. Now, if that's due process, if this is what we elected our representatives to do, I can't believe we ever thought they would do something like this. This is the kind of thing that is happening in Congress because they feel they need to in order to be reelected. They've got to be convicted. Yes, that's a good word. They've got to be convinced that they've got to treat what we consider as a right approach and not what they're judging. There's another thing that's happening, and it's, I guess what I should clearly point out here is, the reason I'm doing all this is USAPA itself is dangerous. It does have bad effects in it. There are, fortunately, the worst of the acts, the sections of the USAPA bill have been sunsetted. That means that by the end of this year, unless Congress specifically passes laws to reinstate those sections, they will die. That's what the sunsetting means. They die at the end of December 2005. So here's another point that the Congress people have to become aware of the fact that we don't want those terrible provisions to continue. They've got to die at the end of 2005. So that's one else I want to say. A few other things that maybe are a little funny, but what I'm driving at is to say there's a lot of things that are bad going on in the country, and they can't all be blamed upon the Patriots Act. There's a lot of other things that are happening. Here we have a terrible situation in the country, the war in Iraq, and Congress spends an enormous amount of time talking to baseball players about steroids. What kind of people did we put in there? The ethics committee with Tom DeLay, where he has been accused of some terrible money laundering and misappropriation of funds, the ethics committee is just blocked from doing anything. But I think the most dangerous is what Senator Frist is doing with regard to imposing what he calls the nuclear option. Now, the history of the United States is that the Senate has the possibility to filibuster. And it takes 60% of the senators to shut off a filibuster. What Frist is doing is taking actions which could lead to the situation where it would take just a simple majority to shut off debate. Now, why is this dangerous right now? Because the way this country functions is pretty much determined by what's going on in the Supreme Court. Now, we know that back in November of 2000, the Supreme Court decided that the Florida Supreme Court didn't know what they were doing and overruled them from recounting the ballots in Florida, and as a result, gave Bush the presidency. The other side of it is that indeed the Supreme Court, in the case of the Marie Schiavo case, refused to overrule. So what goes on in the Supreme Court is very important to us. And we're at a situation where in time, in the next few years, there's going to be several Supreme Court justices that are going to be replaced. And if the ability to filibuster is taken away from the Senate, then it appears as though they're going to be able to get just anybody they want on the Supreme Court. In particular, first is bringing up to Congress for approval two particular people, a senator, a person who was a Supreme Court judge in another state in Texas, Owen and Brown, two of them. They are so outrageous, those two. Go to the websites and look up what I'm talking about. Their backgrounds are outrageous. They have attempted to change state laws from the bench. They're activist judges, which is less than what we need, or something we don't need. If he's